Oops, wrong window. Good, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's stream. Tonight, I'm going to read some bedtime stories, be it Indonesian or English. And if you have any suggestions on what I should read, then comment away, chat away. I'll be reading that for you. Right. First off, I think I've prepared a few bedtime stories here, both in Indonesian and in English. But maybe I'll start in a few minutes. I'm not sure yet, but I'm gonna look for another story as well while we do that. Wait, what is the story I had in mind? So there was a story that I had in mind, but then I forgot what I was going to search. Okay. Oh God, what was the story? What was the story? Oh my God. It was in my mind, but then I forgot. It's an Indonesian folklore, children's folklore, and I'm interested in reading more Indonesian stuff as well. So wait, oh my God, Indonesian folklores that are fun. I think I know. Wait, where is it? Here it is. There's a website dedicated for Indonesian fairy tales here, but it's actually, I think it's simplified. It's got some cute illustrations and stuff, colorful illustration, but it's also quite complete in the term of story, I think. So that's great. Me too. Hey Kay, selamat malam. Welcome to the stream. How are you today? Apa kabar? Saya baru saja memulai. Maybe I'll start from Indonesian stories first, right? Yeah. Semoga kamu menikmati streamnya ya. Semoga kamu menikmati malam ini. Saya akan mulai membacakan dongeng ya. Baik, mari kita mulai. Timun Mas. Alkisah. Di sebuah desa di daerah Jawa Tengah, hidup seorang janda paruh baya yang bernama Mbok Srini. Sejak ditinggal oleh suaminya beberapa tahun, ia hidup sebatang kara. Ia pun juga tidak memiliki anak. Karena kesepian, ia sangat mengharapkan kehadiran seorang anak. Namun sayangnya harapan itu pupus karena suaminya telah meninggal dunia. Mbok Srini hanya dapat menunggu keajaiban untuk bisa memiliki anak. Ia berharap keajaiban terjadi padanya dan dengan selalu berdoa siang dan malam kepada Tuhan yang Maha Kuasa agar dapat diberikan anak. Pada suatu malam, harapan itu datang lewat mimpinya. Dalam mimpinya, Mbok Srini didatangi sesosok raksasa yang menyuruhnya pergi mengambil sebuah bungkusan di bawah pohon besar di hutan tempat biasanya ia mencari kayu bakar. Saat terbangun di pagi hari, Mbok Srini hampir tidak percaya dengan mimpinya semalam. Mungkinkah keajaiban akan benar-benar terjadi pada aku? Ia pun bertanya dalam hati dengan ragu. Namun Mbok Srini berusaha menghilangkan keraguan hatinya. Dengan penuh harapan, ia bergegas menuju ke hutan yang ditunjuk oleh raksasa itu. Setibanya di hutan, ia mencari bungkusan yang berada di bawah pohon besar. Namun ia justru sangat terkejut saat menemukan bungkusan yang dikiranya berisi seorang bayi. Tetapi isinya hanyalah sebutir biji timun. Hatinya pun kembali bertanya-tanya. Apa maksud raksasa itu memberikanku sebiji timun? Ucap Mbok Srini dengan bingung. Di tengah kebingungannya, tanpa disadari, ada sesosok raksasa berdiri di belakangnya sambil tertawa terbahak-bahak. Demikian suara tawa raksasa itu. Mbok Srini pun terkejut sambil membalikkan badannya. Betapa terkejutnya ia karena raksasa itulah yang hadir dalam mimpinya. Ia pun menjadi ketakutan. Ampun, Tuan Raksasa, jangan memakanku. Aku masih ingin hidup. Mbok Srini memohon dengan muka pucat. Jangan takut, hai perempuan tua. Aku tidak akan memakanmu. Bukankah kamu menginginkan seorang anak? Tanya raksasa itu. Benar, Tuan Raksasa. Jawab Mbok Srini dengan gugup. Kalau begitu, segera tanam biji timun itu. Nanti kamu akan mendapatkan seorang anak perempuan. Tapi ingat, kamu harus menyerahkan anak itu kepadaku saat ia sudah dewasa. Karena anak itu akan kujadikan santapanku. Ujar raksasa itu. Karena begitu besar keinginannya untuk memiliki anak, tanpa sadar Mbok Srini menjawab. Baiklah raksasa, aku bersedia menyerahkan anak itu kepadamu. Setelah Mbok Srini selesai memberikan kesediaannya, raksasa itu pun menghilang. Kemudian ia segera menanam biji timun itu di ladangnya. Dengan penuh harapan, setiap hari ia merawat tanaman itu dengan baik. 2 bulan kemudian, tanaman itu pun mulai berubah. Namun anehnya, tanaman timun itu hanya berbuah 1. Semakin hari, buah timun menjadi semakin besar, melebihi buah timun pada umumnya. Warnanya pun sangat berbeda, karena berwarna kuning keemasan. Ketika buah timun sudah masak, Mbok Srini memetik timun yang berat dengan susah payah ke gubuknya. Betapa terkejutnya ia ketika membelah buah timun itu. Ia melihat seorang bayi perempuan yang sangat cantik. Saat akan menggendongnya, bayi itu tiba-tiba menangis. Wah, wah, demikianlah suara bayi itu. Alangkah bahagianya hati Mbok Srini mendengar suara tangisan bayi yang sudah lama dirindukannya itu. Ia pun memberi nama bayi itu Timun Mas. Cup, 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 jangan menangis anakku sayang, Timun Mas. Hibur Mbok Srini. Perempuan paruh baya itu tak dapat menyembunyikan kebahagiaannya. Hingga air matanya menetes membasahi kedua pipinya. Perasaan bahagia itu membuatnya lupa dengan janjinya bahwa dia akan menyerahkan bayi itu kepada raksasa suatu saat kelak. Ia merawat dan mendidik Timun Mas dengan rasa kasih sayang hingga tumbuh menjadi perempuan yang cantik. Mbok Srini sangat bahagia karena selain cantik, Timun Mas juga memiliki kecerdasan yang luar biasa dan sifatnya yang baik. Oleh karena itu, ia sangat sayang kepadanya. Suatu malam, Mbok Srini kembali bermimpi didatangi oleh raksasa yang memberi pesan kepadanya bahwa seminggu lagi ia akan datang menjemput Timun Mas. Sejak itu, ia selalu duduk termenung sendiri. Selamat malam Fenrir, selamat datang, welcome to the stream. Semoga menikmati kedatanganmu di sini ya. Hatinya pun menjadi sedih karena ia akan berpisah dengan anak yang sangat disayanginya. Ia baru menyadari bahwa raksasa itu ternyata raksasa yang jahat. Karena Timun Mas akan dijadikan santapannya. Melihat Mbok Srini sering duduk termenung, Timun Mas pun bertanya-tanya dalam hati. Suatu sore, Timun Mas memberanikan diri untuk menanyakan kegundahan hati yang dirasakan oleh ibunya. Bu, mengapa akhir-akhir ini ibu selalu tampak sedih? Tanya Timun Mas. Sebenarnya, Mbok Srini tidak ingin menceritakan penyebab gundah hatinya. Karena ia tidak ingin anaknya itu ikut bersedih. Namun karena terus didesak, akhirnya ia pun menceritakan asal-usul timun mas yang dirahasiakannya selama ini.
Maafkan ibu, anakku. Selama ini ibu merahasiakan sesuatu kepadamu.
Kata Mbok Srini dengan wajah sedih.
Rahasia apa, Bu?
Tanya timun mas penasaran.
Ketahuilah, Timun Mas. Sebenarnya kamu bukanlah anak kamu itu yang lahir dari rahim ibu.
Jawab Mbok Srini. Belum selesai ibunya berbicara, timun mas tiba-tiba menyela.
Apa maksud ibu?
Tanya timun mas. Mbok Srini pun menceritakan semua rahasia tersebut hingga mimpinya semalam bahwa sesosok raksasa akan datang menjemput anaknya itu untuk dijadikan santapan. Mendengar cerita itu, timun mas pun menjadi kaget seolah-olah tidak percaya.
Aku tidak mau ikut bersama raksasa itu. Aku sangat sayang kepada ibu yang telah mendidik dan membesarkan Timun,
kata timun mas. Mendengarkan perkataan timun mas, Mbok Srini kembali termenung. Ia mencari cara agar anaknya selamat, agar tidak menjadi santapan raksasa itu. Sampai pada hari yang telah dijanjikan oleh raksasa itu, Mbok Srini belum juga menemukan jalan keluar. Hatinya pun mulai cemas. Dalam kecemasannya, tiba-tiba ia menemukan sebuah akal. Ia menyuruh timun mas agar berpura-pura sakit. Dengan begitu, raksasa tidak akan mau menyantapkannya. Saat matahari mulai senja, raksasa itu pun mendatangi gubuk Mbok Srini. Hai perempuan tua, mana anak itu? Aku akan membawanya sekarang, pinta raksasa itu.
Maaf Tuan Raksasa, anak itu sedang sakit keras. Jika kamu menyantapnya sekarang, tentu dagingnya tidak enak. Bagaimana kalau 3 hari lagi kamu datang kemari? Saya akan menyembuhkan penyakitnya yang terlebih dahulu.
Bujuk Mbok Srini yang mencoba mengulur waktu hingga ia menemukan cara agar timun mas bisa selamat. Baiklah kalau begitu. Tapi kamu harus berjanji akan menyerahkan anak itu kepadaku, kata raksasa itu. Setelah Mbok Srini berjanji, raksasa itu pun menghilang. Mbok Srini kembali bingung untuk mencari cara lain. Akhirnya ia menemukan cara yang untuk dapat menyelamatkan anaknya dari raksasa. Ia akan meminta bantuan kepada seorang pertapa yang tinggal di sebuah gunung.
Anakku, besok pagi-pagi sekali ibu akan pergi ke gunung untuk menemui seorang pertapa. Dia adalah teman almarhum suami ibu. Barangkali dia dapat membantu kita untuk menghentikan niat jahat raksasa itu.
Ungkap Mbok Srini.
Benar, Bu. Kita harus membinasakan raksasa itu. Karena aku tidak mau menjadi santapannya.
Jawab timun mas. Keesokan harinya, pagi-pagi sekali berangkatlah Mbok Srini ke gunung itu. Sesampainya di sana, ia langsung menemui pertapa itu dan menyampaikan maksud kedatangannya.
Maaf, Tuan Pertapa. Maksud kedatangan saya kemari ingin meminta bantuan kepada Tuan,
kata Mbok Srini.
Apa yang bisa kubantu, Mbok Srini?
Tanya pertapa itu. Mbok Srini pun menceritakan masalah yang sedang dihadapi anaknya. Mendengar cerita Mbok Srini, pertapa itu pun bersedia membantu.
Baiklah, tunggu di sini sebentar,
ujar pertapa itu seraya berjalan masuk ke dalam ruang rahasianya. Tak berapa lama, pertapa itu kembali sambil membawa 4 buah bungkusan kecil, lalu menyerahkannya kepada Mbok Srini.
Berikanlah bungkusan ini kepada anakmu. Keempat bungkusan ini masing-masing berisi biji timun, jamur, garam, dan terasi. Jika raksasa itu mengejarnya, suruh sebarkan isi bungkusan ini,
jelas pertapa itu. Setelah mendapat penjelasan itu, Mbok Srini pulang membawa keempat bungkus tersebut. Setiba di gubuknya, Mbok Srini menyerahkan keempat bungkusan itu dan menjelaskan tujuannya kepada Timun Mas. Kini hati Mbok Srini mulai agak tenang karena anaknya sudah mempunyai senjata untuk melawan raksasa itu. 2 hari kemudian, raksasa itu pun datang untuk menagih janjinya kepada Mbok Srini. Ia sudah tidak sabar lagi ingin membawa dan menyantap daging Timun Mas. Hai perempuan tua, kali ini kamu harus menepati janjimu. Jika tidak, kamu juga akan kujadikan santapanku. Ancam raksasa itu. Mbok Srini tidak gentar lagi menghadapi ancaman itu. Dengan tenang ia memanggil Timun Mas agar keluar dari dalam gubuk. Tak berapa lama, Timun Mas pun keluar lalu berdiri di samping ibunya.
Jangan takut anakku. Jika raksasa itu akan menangkapmu, segera lari dan ikuti petunjuk yang telah kusampaikan kepadamu.
Mbok Srini membisik kepada Timun Mas.
Baik, Bu.
Jawab Timun Mas. Melihat Timun Mas yang benar-benar sudah dewasa, raksasa itu semakin tak sabar ingin segera menyantapnya. Ketika ia hendak menangkapnya, Timun Mas segera berlari kencang-kencangnya. Raksasa itu pun mengejarnya. Tak ayal lagi, terjadilah kejar-kejaran antara makhluk raksasa itu dengan Timun Mas. Setelah berlari jauh, Timun Mas pun mulai kecapaian. Sementara raksasa itu semakin mendekat. Akhirnya ia pun mengeluarkan bungkusan pemberian pertapa itu. Pertama-tama, Timun Mas menebar biji timun yang diberikan oleh ibunya. Sungguh ajaib. Hutan di sekelilingnya tiba-tiba berubah menjadi ladang timun. Dalam sekejap, batang timun pun tersebut mulai menjalar dan melilit seluruh tubuh raksasa itu. Namun, raksasa itu mampu melepaskan diri dan kembali mengejar Timun Mas. Timun Mas pun segera melemparkan bungkusan yang berisi jarum. Dalam sekejap, jarum-jarum tersebut berubah menjadi rerumputan pohon bambu yang sangat tinggi dan runcing. Namun, raksasa itu mampu melewatinya dan terus mengejar Timun Mas, walaupun kakinya berdarah-darah karena tertusuk bambu tersebut. Melihat usahanya belum berhasil, Timun Mas membuka bungkusan ketiga yang berisi garam, lalu menebarnya. Seketika itu pula, hutan yang telah dilewatinya tiba-tiba berubah menjadi lautan luas yang dalam. Namun, raksasa itu tetap berhasil melaluinya dengan mudah. Timun Mas pun mulai cemas, karena senjatanya hanya tersisa satu. Jika senjata tersebut tidak berhasil melumpuhkan raksasa itu, maka tamatlah riwayatnya. Dengan penuh keyakinan, ia pun melemparkan bungkusan terakhir yang berisi terasi. Seketika itu pula, tempat jatuhnya terasi itu tiba-tiba menjelma menjadi lautan lumpur yang mendidih. Alhasil, raksasa itu terkalahkan karena tercebur ke dalam lautan lumpur dan tewas ketika. Maka selamatlah Timun Mas dari kejaran dan santapan raksasa itu. Dengan sekuat tenaga, Timun Mas berjalan menuju gubuknya untuk menemui ibunya. Melihat anaknya selamat, Mbok Srini pun langsung berucap syukur kepada Tuhan Yang Maha Kuasa. Sejak itu, Mbok Srini dan Timun Mas hidup berbahagia. Baik, itulah dongeng Timun Mas. Halo Arga, welcome to the stream. Apa kabar? Bagaimana harimu? Bagaimana cerita Timun Mas? Ngapain storytelling? Ya betul, ini bedtime story. Nah, setelah dongeng bahasa Indonesia, after the Indonesian folklore bedtime stories, I have a classic, an English classic. Not really English because this is from Hans Christian Andersen, which is Danish, but it's been translated to English. Ya, ini cerita anak dari Hans Christian Andersen yang berjudul The Ugly Duckling. So yeah, I'm going to read The Ugly Duckling. Right. Here's the story of The Ugly Duckling. It was a lovely summer weather in the country, and the golden corn, the green oats, and the haystacks piled up in the meadows looked beautiful. The stork walking about on his long red legs chattered in the Egyptian language, which he had learned from his mother. The cornfields and the meadows were surrounded by a large forest, in the midst of which were deep pools. It was, indeed, delightful to walk about the country. In a sunny spot stood a pleasant old farmhouse close by a deep river, and from the house down to the water side grew great burdock leaves, so high that under the tallest of them a little child could stand upright. The spot was as wild as the center of a thick wood. In this snug retreat sat a duck on her nest, watching for her young brood to hatch. She was beginning to get tired of her task, for the little ones were a long time coming out of their shells, and she seldom had any visitors. The other ducks liked much better to swim about in the river than to climb the slippery banks and sit under a burdock leaf to have a gossip with her. At length one shell cracked, and another, and from each egg came a living creature that lifted its head and cried, "Peep, peep, quack, quack," said the mother. And then they all quacked as well as they could, and looked about them on every side at the large green leaves. Their mother allowed them to look as much as they liked, because green is good for the eyes. "How large the world is," said the young ducks, when they found how much more room they now had than while they were inside the eggshell. "Do you imagine this is the whole world?" asked the mother. "Wait till you have seen the garden. It stretches far beyond that to the parson's field. But I have never ventured to such a distance. Are you all out?" she continued, rising. "No, I declare. The largest egg lies there still. I wonder how long this is to last. I'm quite tired of it." And she seated herself again on the nest. "Well, how are you getting on?" asked an old duck, who paid her a visit. One egg is not hatched yet," said the duck. "It will not break, but just look at all the others. Are they not the prettiest little ducklings you ever saw? They are the image of their father, who is so unkind he never comes to see." "Let me see the egg that will not break," said the duck. "I have no doubt it is a turkey's egg. I was persuaded to hatch some once, and after all my care and trouble with the young ones, they were afraid of the water. I quacked and clucked, but all to no purpose. I could not get them to venture in. Let me look at the egg. Yes, that is a turkey's egg. Take my advice, leave it when it is, and teach the other children to swim." "I think I will sit on it a little while longer," said the duck. "As I have sat so long already, a few days will be nothing." "Please yourself," said the old duck, and she went away. At last, the large egg broke, and a young one crept forth crying, "Beep, beep." It was very large and ugly. The duck stared at it and exclaimed, "It is very large and not at all like the others. I wonder if it's a turkey. We shall soon find it out. However, when we go to the water, if it must go on, it must go in if I have to push it myself." On the next day, the weather was delightful, and the sun shone brightly on the green burdock leaves. So the mother duck took her young brood down to the water and jumped in with a splash.
Quack, quack.
Cried she. And one after another the little ducklings jumped in. The water closed over their heads, but they came up again in an instant, and swam about quite prettily with their legs paddling under them as easily as possible. And the ugly duckling was also in the water swimming with them.
Oh,
Said the mother.
that is not a turkey. How well he uses his legs, and how upright he holds himself. He is my own child, and he is not so very ugly after all if you look at him properly. Quack, quack. Come with me now. I will take you into grand society and introduce you to the farmyard. But you must keep close to me, or you may be trodden upon. And above all, beware of the cat.
When they reached the farmyard, there was a great disturbance. Two families were fighting for an eel's head, which, after all, was carried off by the cat.
See, children, that is the way of the world,
said the mother duck, wetting her beak, for she would have liked the eel's head herself.
Come now, use your legs, and let me see how well you can behave. You must bow your heads prettily to that old duck yonder. She is the highest born of them all, and has Spanish blood. Therefore she is well off. Don't you see she has a red flag tied to her leg, which is something very grand, and a great honor for a duck. It shows that everyone is anxious not to lose her, as she can be recognized both by man and beast. Come now, don't turn your toes. A well-bred duckling spreads his feet wide apart, just like his father and mother, and this way. Now bend your neck and say quack.
The ducklings did as they were bid, but the other ducks stared and said,
Look, here comes another brood, as if there were not enough of us already. And what a queer-looking object one of them is. We don't want him here.
And then one flew out and bit him in the neck.
Let him alone, said the mother. He's not doing any harm. Yes, but he's so big and ugly, said the spiteful duck, and therefore he must be turned out.
The others are very pretty children, said the old duck with the rag on her leg. All but that one. I wish his mother could improve him a little.
That's impossible, your grace, replied the mother. He's not pretty, but he has a very good disposition, and swims as well or even better than the others. I think he will grow up pretty, and perhaps be smaller. He has remained too long in the egg, and therefore his figure is not properly formed.
And then she stroked his neck and smoothed the feathers, saying,
It is a drake, and therefore not of so much consequence. I think he will grow up strong and able to take care of himself.
The other ducklings are graceful enough, said the old duck. Now make yourself at home, and if you can find an eel's head, you can bring it to me. And so they made themselves comfortable. But the poor ducklings, who had crept out of his shell last of all, and looked so ugly, was bitten, and pushed, and made fun of, not only by the ducks, but by all the poultry.
He is so big,
they all said, and the turkey cock, who had been born in the world, who was past, and fancied himself really an emperor, puffed himself out like a vessel in a full sail, and flew at a duckling, and became quite red in the head with passion, so that the poor little thing did not know where to go, and was quite miserable, because he was so ugly and laughed at by the whole farmyard. So it went on from day to day till it got worse and worse. The poor duckling was driven about by everyone. Even his brothers and sisters were unkind to him and would say,
Ah, you ugly creature. I wish the cat would get you.
and his mother said she wished he had never been born. The ducks pecked him, the chickens bit him, and the girl who fed the poultry kicked him with her feet. So at last he ran away, frightening the little birds in the hedge as he flew over the palings. Over the palings.
They're afraid of me because I'm so ugly,
He said. So he closed his eyes and flew still farther until he came out on a large moor inhabited by wild ducks. Here he remained the whole night, feeling very tired and sorrowful. In the morning, when the wild ducks rose in the air, they stared at their new comrade. "What sort of duck are you?" they all said, coming round him. He bowed to them and was as polite as he could be, but he did not reply to their question. "You are exceedingly ugly," said the wild ducks, "but that will not matter if you do not want to marry one of our family." Poor thing! He had no thoughts of marriage. All he wanted was a permission to lie among the rushes and drink some of the water in the moor. After he had been on the moor 2 days, there came two wild geese, or rather goslings, for they had not been out of the lake for long, and were very saucy. "Listen, friend," said one of them to the duckling, "you are so ugly, and we like you very well. Will you go out with us and become a bird of passage? Not far from here is another moor, at which there are some pretty wild geese, all unmarried. It is a chance for you to get a wife. You may be lucky, ugly as you are." Pop pop sounded in the air, and the two wild geese fell dead among the rushes, and the water was tinged with blood. Pop pop echoed far and wide in the distance, and whole flocks of wild geese rose up from the rushes. The sound continued from every direction, for the sportsmen surrounded the moor, and some were even seated on branches of trees, overlooking the rushes. The blue smoke from the gun rose like clouds over the dark trees, and as it floated away across the water, a number of sporting dogs bounded and among the rushes, which bent beneath them wherever they went. How they terrified the poor duckling! He turned away his head to hide it under his wing, and at the same time, and at the same moment, a large, terrible dog passed quite near him. His jaws were wide open, his tongue hung from his mouth, and his eyes glared fearfully. He thrust his nose close to Duckling, showing his sharp teeth, and then splash, splash, he went into the water without touching him. "Ah," sighed the duckling, "how thankful I am for being so ugly. Even a dog will not bite me." And so he lay quite still, while a shot rattled through the rushes, and gun after gun was fired over him. It was late in the day before all became quiet, but even the poor young thing did not dare to move. He waited quietly for several hours, and then, after looking carefully around him, hastened away from the moor as fast as he could. He ran over a field and meadow till a storm arose, and he could hardly struggle against it. Towards evening, he reached a poor little cottage that seemed ready to fall, and only remained standing because it could not decide on which side to fall first. The storm continued so violent that the duckling could go on no farther. He sat down by the cottage, and then he noticed that the door was not quite closed in consequence of one of the hinges having given way. There was, therefore, a narrow opening near the bottom large enough for him to slip through, which he did very quietly and got a shelter for the night. A woman, a tomcat, and a hen lived in this cottage. The tomcat, whom the mistress called my little son, was a great favorite. He could raise his back and purr, and could even throw out sparks from his fur if it were stroked the wrong way. The hen had very short legs, so she was called Chicky Short Legs, she said. She laid good eggs, and her mistress loved her as if she had been her own child. In the morning, the strange visitor was discovered, and the tomcat began to purr, and the hen to cluck.
What is that noise about?
Said the old woman, looking round the room, but her sight was not very good. Therefore, when she saw the duckling, she thought it must be a fat duck that had strayed from home.
Oh, what a prize!
She exclaimed.
I hope it is not a trick, for then I shall have the duck's eggs. I must wait and see.
So the duckling was allowed to remain on trial for 3 weeks, but there were no eggs, and the tomcat was the master of the house, and the hen was a mistress. They always said, "We and the world," for they believed themselves to be half the world, and the better half too. The duckling thought that the others might hold a different opinion on the subject, but the hen would not listen to such thoughts.
Can you lay eggs?
She asked.
No? Then have the goodness to hold your tongue. Can you raise your back or purr or throw out sparks?
Said the tomcat.
No? Then you have no right to express an opinion when sensible people are speaking.
So the duckling sat in the corner, feeling very low-spirited, till the sunshine and the fresh air came into the room through the open door, and then he began to feel such a great longing for a swim on the water that he could not help telling the hen.
What an absurd idea, said the hen. You have nothing else to do, therefore you have foolish fancies. If you could purr or lay eggs, then it would pass away. But it is so delightful to swim about on the water,
said the duckling,
and so refreshing to feel it close over your head while you dive down to the bottom. Delightful indeed,
said the hen.
Why, you must be crazy. Ask the cat. He's the cleverest animal I know. Ask him about how he would like to swim about on the water or dive under it, for I will not speak of my own opinion. Ask our mistress, the old woman. There is no one in the world more clever than she is. Do you think she would like to swim or to let the water close over her head?
You don't understand me, said the duckling.
We don't understand you? Who can understand you? I wonder. Do you consider yourself more clever than the cat or the young woman? I will say nothing of myself. Don't imagine such nonsense, child, and thank your good fortune that you have been received here. Are you not in a warm room and the society from which you may learn something? But you are a chatterer, and your company is not very agreeable. Believe me, I speak only for your own good. Let me tell you in pleasant truth, but it is a proof of my friendship. I advise you, therefore, to lay eggs and learn to purr as quickly as possible.
I believe I must go out into the world again, said the duckling.
Yes, do, said the hen.
So the duckling left the cottage and soon found water on which it could swim and dive, but was avoided by all other animals because of its ugly appearance. Autumn came, and the leaves in the forest turned to orange and gold. Then, as winter approached, the wind caught them as they fell and whirled them in the cool air. The clouds, heavy with hail and snowflakes, hung low in the sky, and the raven stood on the ferns crying, "Croak, croak." It made one shiver with cold to look at him. All this was very sad for the poor little duckling. One evening, just as the sun set amid raven clouds, there came a large flock of beautiful birds out of the bushes. The duckling had never seen any like them before. There were swans, and they curved their graceful necks while their soft plumage shone with dazzling whiteness. They uttered a singular cry as they spread their glorious wings and flew away from those cold regions to warmer countries across the sea. As they mounted higher and higher in the air, the ugly little duckling felt quite a strange sensation as he watched them. He whirled himself in the water like a wheel, stretched out his neck towards them, and uttered a cry so strange that it frightened himself. Could he ever forget those beautiful, happy birds? And when at last they were out of his sight, he dived under the water and rose again almost beside himself with excitement. He knew not the names of these birds, nor where they had flown, but he felt towards them as he had never felt for any other bird in the world. He was not envious of these beautiful creatures, but wished to be as lovely as they. Poor ugly creature! How gladly he would have lived even with the ducks had they only given him encouragement. The winter grew colder and colder. He was obliged to swim about on the water to keep him from freezing, but every night the space on which he swam became smaller and smaller. At length it froze so hard that the ice in the water crackled as he moved, and the duckling had to paddle with his legs as well as he could to keep the space from closing up. He became exhausted at last and lay still and helpless, frozen fast in the ice. Early in the morning, a peasant who was passing by saw what had happened. He broke the ice in pieces with his wooden shoe and carried the duckling home to his wife. The warmth revived the poor little creature, but when the children wanted to play with him, the duckling thought they would do him some harm. So he started up in a terror, fluttered into the milk pan, and splashed the milk about the room. Then the woman clapped her hands, which frightened him still more. He flew first into the butter cask, then into the meal tub, and out again. What a condition he was in! The woman screamed and struck at him with the tongs. The children laughed and screamed and tumbled over each other in their efforts to catch him, but luckily he escaped. The door stood open. The poor creature could just manage to slip out among the bushes and lie down quite exhausted in the newly fallen snow. It would be very sad were I to relate all the misery and privation which the poor little duckling endured during the hard winter. But when it had passed, he found himself lying one morning in a moor amongst the rushes. He felt the warm sun shining and heard the larks singing and saw that all around was beautiful spring. Then the young bird felt that his wings were strong as he flapped them against his sides and rose high into the sky. They bore him onwards until he found himself in a large garden before he well knew how it had happened. The apple trees were in full blossom, and the fragrant alders bent their long green branches down to the stream, which wound round a smooth lawn. Everything looked beautiful in the freshness of early spring. From a thicket close by came three beautiful white swans, rustling their feathers and swimming lightly over the smooth water. The ducklings remembered the lovely birds and felt more strangely unhappy than ever. I will fly to those royal birds, he exclaimed, and they will kill me because I am so ugly and dare to approach them. But it does not matter. Better be killed by them than pecked by the ducks, beaten by the herons, pushed about by the maiden who feeds the poultry, or starved with hunger in the winter. Then he flew to the water and swam towards the beautiful swan. The moment they spied the stranger, they rushed to meet him with outstretched wings. Kill me, said the poor bird, and he bent his head down to the surface of the water and waited death. But what did he see in the clear stream below? His own image. No longer a dark, grey bird, ugly and disagreeable to look at, but a graceful and beautiful swan. To be born in a duck's nest in a farmyard is of no consequence to a bird if it is hatched from a swan's egg. He now felt glad at having suffered sorrow and trouble, because it enabled him to enjoy so much better all the pleasure and the happiness around him. For the great swans swam around the newcomer and stroked his neck with their beaks as a welcome. Into the garden presently came some little children and threw bread and cake into the water. See, cried the youngest, there's a new one. And the rest were delighted and ran to their father and mother, dancing and clapping their hands and shouting joyously. There's another swan come! A new one has arrived! Then they threw more bread and cake into the water and said, the new one is the most beautiful of all. He is so young and pretty. And the old swans bowed their heads before him. Then he felt quite ashamed and hid his head under his wing, for he did not know what to do. He was so happy, and yet not at all proud. He had been persecuted and despised for his ugliness, and now he had heard them say he was the most beautiful of all the birds. Even the elder tree bent down its boughs into the water before him, and the sun shone warm and bright. Then he rustled his feathers, curved his slender neck, and cried joyfully from the depths of his heart. I never dreamed of such happiness as this while I was an ugly duckling. The end. So, that was The Ugly Duckling by Hans Christian Andersen. How do you like this story? How long has it been since you all last heard of The Ugly Duckling story? Ya, berapa lama semenjak kalian terakhir kali dengar cerita The Ugly Duckling ya? Bebek yang buruk rupa. Cerita yang cukup terkenal, legendaris, tapi sudah mulai terlupakan ya sama anak-anak zaman sekarang. Yeah, it's starting to become forgotten by kids today. But yeah, it's just a beautiful story. I hope you all enjoyed that, and this is the 2 stories I have today. I actually have a whole book of Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales here. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It's around tens of stories here. Tens and tens of fairy tales that I could read for you next time. So I hope you all enjoyed that. It's all. I think that's all for today's bedtime story. And I bid you good night and have sweet dreams. Thank you. Oh my God, Keong, you are late. Too bad. But don't worry, you can listen to the VOD. Yeah, you can listen to the VOD once the stream ends. But I hope you'll enjoy the story I told, the story I read, and I bid you all good night and sweet dreams. Thank you for coming. And again, I enjoy the story. Goodbye. Thank you.